Here we go again with things. I mean, this is probably, without a doubt, this is probably one of the biggest Fridays we've had in a long time. Just one story after another today. And I'll just kind of start at the top with some of the more interesting stuff from this morning and then work our way into some of the stuff that's developing even right now as we speak. I guess one of the first big stories today was Don Lemon got arrested overnight, as we suspected that he would. It took a grand jury. Remember, we had a judge that decided that Don Lemon was above the law and was not subject to arrest and wouldn't sign the arrest warrant. But luckily and properly, the Justice Department continued to pursue that. The guy went in and was part of a violation of the First Amendment, which is the ability for people to worship and to assemble peaceably as they had been. And that's the thing about it. The First Amendment doesn't just cover journalists. In no way does it just cover journalists, and we've all always known that. But here's that this afternoon, he has been arrested. There was a potential today that he was going to have his first appearance. He's in federal custody. They took him into custody out in L.A. He had the stones to go ahead and show up over at, I think it was the Grammys or something he was going to cover. He's still pretending to be a journalist. And a lot of folks are just speculating that, his career's dead, that this may very well help his career. It'll give him street cred with the people he appeals to. So that's not even a real story of great consequence, but it is something on the list of things today. Of course, one of the more outrageous stories today is the judge in the federal case. There is a federal and a state case against this Luigi Mangione. Remember, he killed the United Healthcare CEO in cold blood. We all saw the video. It's as conclusive, I think, as you're ever going to get of a murder. And it wasn't just a murder. It was an assassination. It was plotted and planned. Well, and then it turns out this guy has been, they've removed the death penalty from the table, according to a federal judge that has the case. And it was over a technicality. Not to get too deep in the weeds, many of you have heard the analysis already today about that case. It's one of those situations where the judge says, in order for the feds to seek a death penalty, they have to have a companion case of violence. If you kill somebody in the case of committing another violent act, then you're eligible for the death penalty. Some states' laws are similar to that too. It's automatic in some states, but others you have eligibility under some other standards. So the judge in this case decided that the stalking that he did of the CEO before he pulled the trigger was not a violent act, so it didn't qualify, thus taking the death penalty off the table, much to the chagrin of a lot of people that wanted to see justice in this case. Now, that can be appealed, and the judge in the case got very, very in the weeds on technicality and case precedent, and it's likely that that case will be appealed on an appellate level, and we'll see where the appellate courts go with it. Now, the state also is pursuing this case, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure if the death penalty is on the table in the state case, but we should be able to find that out in the course of events here today too. Man, it is just one of those news days, and then it just keeps going. Trump made his nominee to be Fed chairman. We'll get into some of that a little bit later. I'm going to give you all a sort of a menu this hour, and then we'll get into some of the nitty gritty of these stories. So we got a new Fed chair name. A lot of folks getting to know him. The Democrats are probably dusting off some dossier to try to dirty the guy up, but there's that in the news today. I'm just going down the list. The government shutdown. It's all but inevitable now. And it's kind of a technicality. We understand the Democrats and Trump have come to an understanding on how to move forward with some of their holdout positions, but it's the freaking Republicans in the Senate that won't let that go forward, namely Lindsey Graham, who is grandstanding over a couple of issues, one of which is this sanctuary state issue, but the other that's still up his craw is this Arctic frost case. This is the case where when the Biden administration was investigating their political opponents in the previous administration, they captured some cell phone data and some information from members of Congress without their knowledge, working with the phone companies. And that still has many of those guys just really, speaking of frost, they're frosted. over that issue, and Graham is still holding out over some legislation that he has related to that. He's being a diva right now. The Senate's in a choke point, and then the House has gone home. So even if the Senate were to come up with some compromise or resolution here tonight, the House has already taken off, and they probably can't get back until Monday. Technically, the federal government shuts down at midnight tonight. Now, granted, not much goes on the weekend, except for you've got some departments that are still out there helping rescue people from the ice damage. You've got all kinds of parts of the federal government that do have to continue to do very, very serious work all weekend long. ICE, HSI, Border Patrol, all of the law enforcement agencies, some of the military, I think, might even be included in this holdup. So anyhow, it'll be just like the last one, to no effect other than a giant inconvenience, but that's just kind of what they do in Washington right now. Then there's the Epstein files on top of all that. Any other day, the Epstein files would be something we could talk about for hours. The details in those files are still sort of trickling out. I haven't been able to really, of course, read all the headlines. I'm not going to sit here and read 3 million pages right before a radio show, but first person I heard from about it, I was actually working on a project. My wife reached out to me and said some people had told her that it was all about Trump. And it wasn't. It's that there is some Trump stuff in there, and I think it's what Trump's always been referred to. It looks like where he's mentioned around 2020, some people spiked the file with some anonymous tips, saying some really insidious stuff about Trump and some minors, none of which could be substantiated. There's no chat records, email records, phone records, date records, calendars, other witnesses, or anybody that can corroborate these allegations that seem to have popped up. But yet here we sit with people that would continue to try to make you think that was a legitimate part of the investigation. So the FBI, as they tend to do, vetted everything that came in, and when it's not credible, it's not credible. And so that's true of all case files. Every investigator I've ever worked with or talked to has way more information than is actually usable in court or even true at all when you go out and start canvassing. And so there's that. Who is in it today with much more substantiation, actual exchanges from Bill Gates, for example, asking for antibiotics. Let's see if I've gotten this right. For his wife, because he thinks he got an STD from some, quote, Russian girls. Bill Gates. Isn't this guy was going to save the planet from something, and he can't even avoid getting the clap. So, so no wonder his wife took him for half his money and took off. But that kind of explains a lot of that. That's where you get the Melinda Gates Foundation. She now took his money and she's handing it out because he got the clap. That's a weird deal. And who knows what else will develop from those files this afternoon. It was a massive dump. There's some videos in it. When Todd Blanche made the release today, he said, and we kind of suspected this, not going to be a whole lot in there that's going to satisfy people, meaning there's no smoking gun. There's not anything in there, even politically, no matter which side you're on, that's going to implicate somebody as a single piece of evidence alone. And your humble radio host over here in Birmingham has been telling you all that for months. That's just not how case files look. They're to use my best metaphor, I try to do this when I can, but I think the best metaphor for this case and other cases like it is a box of just 1,000 puzzle pieces, and it's just a bunch of puzzle pieces. And until you can put all those pieces together and they actually fit together, until then you don't have a picture of anything. But you can take a single piece and draw any conclusion you want, and that's where people have foolishly misjudged some of this Epstein case. They have misjudged just recently the shooting last weekend of that Yahoo that went out to fight with the Fed. So, good Lord, if that's not enough, I mean, it keeps going. How about this one? And this just happened probably in the last 2 hours. Catherine O'Hara died. Now, when they said her name, I went, wait a minute, I know who that is. You know who that is, AJ? Have you seen the story yet?
Have not seen the story yet.
It's the Home Alone mom. The actress Catherine O'Hara. She was only 71. I know her. Yes, the famous Kevin scene. I saw him playing it on Fox News. Did you ever watch Schitt's Creek?
I watched bits and pieces of it.
it's to me, it's one of the funniest shows ever made. It's sort of timelessly funny. I think she stole that show. I mean, she's the mom on there too, and it was a perfect role for her. If any of you watched it, she sort of plays a washed up actress. And if you know the plot, they get stuck in this little podunk down because they're out of money and they're stuck in this little town. And hijinks are pursued from there. But yeah, I was shocked to see she was only 71 years old. And then, of course, when you go back and look at that scene, she looks so young. And AJ, then it scares me. I start doing the math on my own age. I'm like, let's see, 79 minus 71 minus. Wow, that is very young. So a little sad story for her fans tonight.
And I forgot she was in. I think she was in Beetlejuice too.
Was she? Yeah. She was like sort of all the rage, playing that mom role in a lot of things in the 90s and maybe the 2000s as well. And I don't know when Schitt's Creek was actually made. It was
from 2015 to 2020.
That sounds about right. Yeah, I sort of caught it after it had already been out. You know, with streaming, you can catch everything late. So, yeah. So there's that story in the news today. I got a list. I haven't even hit everything on the list yet. We had a caller yesterday about the mixed up embryo. Have you seen this picture, AJ?
I did, because it was kind of hard to believe when he first brought it up, and then I did see it.
So we had a caller yesterday to call us about this, and they said, you heard about the embryo case out of Florida, and it sounded familiar because there have been cases similar to this, but what was funny is to hear and I'm not laughing, this is a horrible situation to try to figure out for a lot of reasons. The little girl's beautiful, but this little couple's white as they can be, and this little baby's black, and they had her through surrogacy, or not surrogacy, through IVF, and they put the wrong baby in there. And so then that brings up, we sort of noodled it around last night. The picture, they love her, they want to raise her. She gave birth to her, but clearly it's not their baby. But the headline was, I heard some newscaster today say, so they went and had DNA tests to determine if it was their child. I was like, of course that's not your child. But so then there's a family out there, and this child was an embryo from a family that paid all that money and worked hard and had hopes and dreams of having their own kid, and as somebody else had their kid. So this family's suing, saying it's not that we don't love her, but we're worried that another family is going to come along and file a claim that this is their child and they want their child back. And then they wonder, so was our embryo planted in another couple, and do we have a child running around, which would put them in the shoes of the original parents of the biological parents of this little baby? And so, wow, what a huge mix-up. And just think about this too. If it weren't for the race swap issue, and it's not like Netflix put this together, I'm just kidding, but if it wasn't for that issue, how many parents might have gone through this because of IVF and don't know they've got the wrong kid? I ain't trying to freak y'all out, because I know lots and lots of families that love and cherish their kids. And sometimes you have a kid that looks nothing like either one of y'all. So you're just going, well, I guess she favors Pawpaw. But in this case, what a nightmare for everybody involved. They're also asking in the lawsuit that the clinic go back and DNA test and double check every kid that was born through their services for the last 5 years. So that could create, do you think this was one sloppy, just one-off event that just happened to happen, and wow, what a fluke? Or if this was systemic or intentional, think about that. What happens to all these parents that are caught up in this stuff? It's crazy.
Now, the question is, I'm trying to pull up the story because I was like, well, what's the parent's name? Like, what if they got the names mixed up? You know, the dad's name.
Oh, like they were close together?
Yeah, like the dad's name is like Tyrone, and they just assume like, okay, it's Tyrone, you know.
But it's a white dude named Tyrone.
Yeah,
I know what you're saying.
Like I saw this on social media. I think it was one of the comedy shows, and they were like, you know, this white couple having a baby. They just gave birth, and the doctor, who was a nurse, and she was African American, and she was like, so, you know, beautiful baby, so what do you want to name your child? And they were like, DeMarcus. And they were like, oh, Marcus. No, DeMarcus. That sounds like a strong name. Just like, what if that was the type of situation that happened?
Oh, man. And this poor little girl, it's like, the new family's going to come and get you now. You're their child, and you're not Mary Catherine Kate anymore. Like, uh-oh. Man, it's funny, but it's also frightening if anybody, because all my kids are, young enough to be just having kids, and we got friends and people in our family that have gone through the IVF services, and man, it's just what do they do, AJ? Are they going to fight over the girl? I mean, if that was somebody else's baby, the ethical dilemmas here. Okay, that's somebody else's sperm and egg that made the embryo. You'd think they'd want their child, even though somebody else went through the 9 months of birth and thought they were having their own kid. What a nightmare. What an absolute nightmare. So,
unless the parents be like, wait till they're 18, 19.
yeah, let's see how they turn out.
And then if they become successful, that's my baby.
It's like, I tell you what, let's meet at Waffle House when they're like 12 and let me see how things are going.
Right.
Then we might claim them, but otherwise, unless y'all got a receipt or something.
That baby don't look like me. I ain't that baby's pappy.
Dude, I told you what my dad did, right? I've told the story so many times. When my son was born, and he actually got to be friends with the kid. There was another kid born the same night, same hospital. This kid's African American. Of course, my oldest was white. And there's two little babies in the nursery. It was a beautiful night. I met the other family, the dad. So my dad comes bursting up in there as he did. And I was just glad he showed up. And he comes to the hospital, and we're looking in the window, and I'm thinking I'm going to have a precious moment with my father. 3 generations, there's your little boy. So he's looking in the nursery window. There's a little black boy, little white boy. He's going, he looked at me and said, I think you need to talk to your wife about something. I was like, shut up. I'm trying to have a moment. The other one. I checked. I saw him come out.
But now look, you are of age now. You have that sense of humor. I could see you doing something.
I would
like
totally
that.
say this. I would be in the same. I could not have resisted. I'm in his shoes now. I get exactly how he was feeling. He was always like that. He couldn't let a moment get all sensitive. He had to say something funny and break it up. He had to throw humor and to keep things from getting all serious. But whatever. All right. So okay, that'll get us started. Good Lord, what a laundry list we have tonight. Plenty to talk about. And I just got this hunch there'll be other developments and headlines. So when we get to them, we'll get to them. 545-9950, Leland Live, Talk 995. Y'all stay tuned. All right, y'all. It is wow. It's already 2:23. EcoView Windows and Doors bringing you the show tonight. Man, what a great company that they put together to help you get these window projects done. They're just the best in the business, and that's what Becky and her team set out to do, was to just wreck that place and start all over. And I love the story because they were like, we're going to find the best windows, we're going to find the best other products that they do as well, the sunrooms and the door packages. And then we're going to go out and just hire the best installers anywhere around that are reliable, show up on time, get the work done. And they believe in their product so much, they'll stand behind the workmanship. They've got coverage, of course, while they're there on site. They've got extended warranties, and they've got a guarantee, which I think is always fascinating, that they can save you 35% on your heating and cooling bills in the first 12 months if you go with EcoView Windows and Doors. So give them a shot, see what they can do for you. It really is a wonderful company. EcoViewWindows.com. Becky Jackson and the whole team, EcoViewWindows.com. As we get down the road here on this Friday, I didn't even mention the weather at the top of the hour on the show. I tend to do that right off the bat when there's anything that's kind of unusual, extreme weather and all that. Now, the cold, we've talked about that for days, and we know the cold has been something that we're going to have to deal with this weekend. So y'all really do. This is dangerously cold weather coming in here starting tonight. Going to be really breezy as well. And so just do the right thing, layer up, stay inside if you can. But some of y'all are just, you're hard-headed and you're going to get that last hunting weekend in, or you've got things you've already planned. And so do what you can. But we do have in the broader forecast for, I think, tonight and maybe through tomorrow, a chance of a little bit of accumulation of snow in Alabama, particularly our part of Alabama, and they keep moving the map around. Largely, it's a line that goes kind of from, if I had to draw it right now, it'd be Jasper, Coleman, Aniana, across that way, mostly north of Birmingham. But don't be surprised if you see a few flurries, or the ground has been cold enough clearly for it to stick. And so in normal circumstances, we probably wouldn't even have any collection of snow if we got just a little bit. But this may pile up. It's still less than an inch on the radar. I hate those because they're fun enough to look at and pretty to take pictures of, but not enough for the kids to go out and make a proper snowman or get in a snowball fight or something like that. And it's not a school night, so the kids have already, I guess they've already had their time off from the previous event. So y'all, if anything changes on those maps, I always tell you here in the afternoon that we get those map updates usually about this time of the day, or closer to 4 o'clock. And so we'll let you know if they give us any other chances or further chances in any of that. So y'all hang in there, and we'll hang in there, and we'll get those headlines to you and keep bringing them. So just to recap a little bit, we got a lot of developing stories, things where the story could change. In other words, in Don Lemon, he could show up in a courtroom this afternoon. They're out there on California time, a couple of hours behind us. So he may have a prelim. Not sure if there'll be cameras involved, but there'll be that. I don't think we've seen a perp walk or any kind of mugshot or any pictures of the guy, but that's a story that is floating around. We got, let's see, the Mangione case seems to be in hand. That made a quick headline. I don't expect there's going to be any breakthroughs on the government shutdown tonight. It's just they're dug in and they've all just thrown their hands up for the weekend, basically, is what it sounds like. Now, let me decide, how much time do we have? We've got about 3 minutes. Let's go into Ilhan Omar, back to Minnesota for a minute. It was nice for a few minutes to have a break from that town. There's still protests, and the state police are now the ones having the clashers with these professional protesters. And it's kind of all over the map. There was a story that leaked last night that Tim Walz has cut a deal with this Amy Klobuchar that if she wins the governor's race, that she'll appoint him to her Senate seat, that they're going to do some kind of swappy-do. I don't know about that. If y'all know Amy Klobuchar, pretty boring woman. I saw a funny meme of her yesterday. She had on this frumpy outfit, and it said, "The devil wears coals." You'd have to see the picture. So there's that. Then there's, let me throw this in too. Ilhan Omar, back to her and her family empire. Turns out we've focused on the wine business this week with a lot of reporting that's come in. There was no wine business. They didn't produce any wine. They didn't. And then they disappeared everything they did try to claim was a legitimate business. I guess they're hiding the evidence. So around $5 million associated with that non-entity. And then some intrepid reporters started digging through the financials on yet another deal, and that would be this financial services company that her husband started where the bulk of the money was. That's in excess of $20 million. And what they found out overnight, I saw the story this morning, there was no company. They have no clients. They claim to do work in like 18 or 20 countries. There's no registration of them with the SEC, which you have to do in that particular industry. It doesn't exist. So there were no clients. There really was no company. Maybe they were just arrogant or even foolish or both to just make up a name and write it down on a form to claim you had a business so you could pass the money. The question is, where's the money? And exactly how did they get the money? And it's one of those things that's not going anywhere to some questions are answered. And there hadn't been any answers tonight. So we'll keep up with that. If there's anything new on that case, that is just so blatantly in your face. It's just stunning. All right, that'll get us going for the first half hour. 545-9950. If you want to jump on the radio show, we'll go to the phones, get some of y'all in here and deal with more of the headlines tonight. Leland Live, Talk 99.5, back here in just a minute. All right, y'all, 233 Leland Live, Talk 99.5. Let's get this thing going again this half hour. Of course, Allen and Company, if you're getting ready for Valentine's Day, some of y'all just giving up on Valentine's Day. Don't do that. Maybe you did that years ago. You're just like, it's no big deal. Surprise her, man. Throw her a curveball and go to Allen and Company and get something beautiful. They've got some tremendous gift giving ideas in a lot of price ranges, so it's not going to break the budget. They can find something pretty that they can put in that little special box, and you still got about 2 weeks before the big day. It's Allen and Company. I do appreciate all that they've done for this audience over the years, and even beyond the gift givings, the engagement settings, and the repurposing the rings. These guys are so good at the day-to-day stuff when you've got to have something cleaned or upgraded or fixed in that way. Let them help. Allen and Company. Y'all reach out to them. They're in Vestavia. Right there, Vestavia's got this one main drag where all the major retail really exist. And so it's right on Highway 31. I call it the car wash, sort of Chick-fil-A fire department side of 31 if you're looking for them. Put them in your GPS. And I'll tell you got to look because they're not by design a large shop with a big presence. They don't want to be that. They want to be very specialty, very boutique, very personal. And that's why once you get to know the Thompson family, you'll see what I mean. It's Allen and Company over in Vestavia. Y'all reach out there and see them and get this done before Valentine's Day. All right, AJ, I'm busy as a one-arm paper hanger over here trying to hook up equipment. So, can you see me yet? Do you even see me on the little thingy thing? You just checking on that? I guess not. All right.
Yeah, I see you.
You got me? Okay.
Yes.
We got too much tech, man. Too much tech. 545-9950. If y'all want to get in on the show tonight, get on in on it, and we'll be looking for you. Let me see if there was a couple other little nuggets I didn't get to in the first 30 minutes. We'll start with this. The FBI's been busy too. They made a huge roundup, and it involved several cities and towns, but it was of the Latin Kings gang that is pretty much infiltrated all over the country. And they arrested 50 of these guys. One would assume some of those are going to be eligible for deportation. But it was also just a general crime gang bust. That went down today. Not much else on that, but we did have Kash Patel getting out in front of that one. Of course, Pam Bondi, just to go back to the Don Lemon story today, because, again, Justice has really been active and in front of the news. She got right out in front of the Don Lemon thing, even putting out a statement, making sure she got credit for it. It said something like, at my direction, the crew has gone back to a grand jury and they've indicted Don Lemon, and apparently they'd sort of caught him. I guess he had his big fuzzy slippers on or something because he was at a hotel getting ready to cover the Grammys, and they got him at night. And that's the way to do it. They didn't high profile it. They didn't walk him in front of cameras and tip off the media and cause a scene, because that's what I think they were smart enough to know. That's exactly what Don Lemon would have wanted, is a scene over this incident. This guy, there's a sick mentality, and believe me, I've been around folks like this, especially in the political world, where any attention is good attention. The old quote is, write what you want about me, just spell my name right. And that's true and not true in some quarters. So, but if you think about it, the people that already are not disposed to like a Don Lemon type, with his arrogance and really his ignorance about most everything he talks about, you're going to relish in the fact that he finally got some comeuppance, especially when he basically dared the feds to take him in. But it's not going to hurt his career. I don't think he'll face. Now, I did go back and look. Conspiracy against rights and violating the FACE Act could have him facing up to 40 years in prison. But look, he's in California. I'm sure they're going to get one of these woke federal judges. I'll be stunned if the case even makes it to full adjudication. Maybe he cuts a plea and does some community service or something. But at least we saw that you can't blatantly break the law the way he did. And y'all, it's not even questionable. If you think that was a protest, and most of y'all don't, you just don't understand what the First Amendment's about. And this guy is, as a person who's been and is continuing to try to be in the media, Don Lemon should know that. He should clearly know that and where that line is. We had to go to great lengths, and I'll just go back over my own career, particularly in TV. If you're on a scene, an active scene like that, to stay out of the way. I mean, you could get booted off by the cops, and you almost have this understanding. They know that they'll give you some space to work and do your job, but you back off. If they put a yellow tape up, you don't cross the line. You don't mess with them when they're having a conversation. You don't eavesdrop. You kind of work with them. You get the story out. They don't mind the coverage, but they've got a lot to do on an active crime scene. And then, of course, there was the best example I heard last week of somebody decided to rob a bank, and you can't, as a reporter, decide, hey, I want to document this, and I'm gonna. He calls it chronicling. I'm gonna chronicle this with my little camera because I'm a journalist and I can go anywhere and do anything. The laws don't apply to me. I don't know any legit journalist that believes that. We get a little, like I just described, you get a little discretion and latitude to be able to come in and go from tense situations. I think about the Rodney King riots. Boy, that was a tense and crazy time in America. And I was a super young reporter, and I was sent out to some very, very tough places that where the community was about to explode. Not in L.A., but it was happening all over the country. And the cops and even some of the people involved in that, they kind of give you a little space if you're in a news car because they get what you're trying to do. Maybe he took that too seriously. But this dude's facing some time. We'll see if he gets a hearing this afternoon. And there are any other details about how they lay the case out. You don't even have to be a prosecutor to lay that case out. He was an active participant. And he set himself up. And this is where I said this the day after all this happened. He gets on camera and he starts trying to have plausible deniability that he had any foreknowledge of the event. He goes, just ask the lady that runs it. I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't know where they were going to go. But then he had just on his live stream stood there in the snow and told his audience, they're getting ready to do an operation. I can't tell you where we're going to go, but it's going to surprise you. And we're going to go along and show it to you live, which means he knew where they were going to go. And he brought them donuts and he fed them and was giving sugar to the lady that ran it. This guy blew his own case before he even made that excuse. And that's the problem with liars. Once you start lying, you have to tell so many lies to cover up for the one you told before. You forget what lie you've told, and then you get caught. And that's exactly what happened to this fool. So, again, any updates on that, we'll let you know tonight. Let's go to the phones. I see we get calls coming up in here. We'll start with Ruth this afternoon on line 2. What's up, Ruth?
Yes, Leland. Mine is the older call because this is about a mixed up baby in a hospital. I was living in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and I had just had my baby, and they said it was a boy, but it was a little bit premature, so they took him immediately to do whatever they do, and I didn't get to hold him, but I knew I had a boy, so I was laying in the hospital bed waiting for them to bring me my little boy when this nurse walked in with a bundle and said Ford girl, and I said, well, I'm Ford, but I had a boy.
Oh, Lord.
And now, if I had a girl, I would have probably got that girl, and
yeah,
probably wouldn't have got my own thing.
But for the difference in sex, you wouldn't have known, right?
No.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Wow.
Well, I'm sure mix-up happens a lot.
Well, there had been some cases of mix-ups when my oldest was born. That would have been 92. There were some high-profile cases, and I don't remember the specifics, but there had been some hospital mix-up switched babies, and then there were a couple cases of snatched babies where some crazy woman and that maybe had a miscarriage or something would just dress up like a nurse and sneak in the hospital and just get a baby. And so these things were all in the news, and I remember being told upon the birth to count his fingers, count his toes, look at any particular birthmarks, and like really eyeball the kid to make sure we got the right kid. And I did that. I remember standing there looking for moles or anything that identified him, so there wasn't a mix-up because we didn't have all that technology back then. But it was in the news. It was in your thoughts if you were having children back in those days, for sure.
Yeah. I do remember when they would snatch babies.
Yikes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. There's Ruth tonight. The baby thing, man. Let's go back to that for a minute because I was listening to a family spokesperson and y'all, look, the black-white thing is just kind of funny, and AJ and I had fun with it a second ago, but that's why they knew pretty quickly that this clearly is not our child. And then, so your heart breaks for the family whose embryo it was, and then the complications of what all could have, In other words, okay, so you got a batch of embryos from that young lady's biological family. They could have gone ahead and planted one of the legit embryos in those parents, in the mom, and they still had their baby and never would have known the difference. Would be going through life with their child, not knowing that they had a whole nother child that was given to somebody else, right? And then there's the emotion of attaching to a pregnancy and giving full birth to this child, but it's not your child. And it wasn't like a surrogacy where you know that going in, where mothers volunteer or get paid to do that kind of thing. So there's that complication. Then the mystery over whether if these people's biological embryos may have gotten actually swapped, say the day of, because I think those things, and those of you who've been through IVF can teach us about how this works. But I think once they're quote frozen, that there's not, in other words, they wouldn't have necessarily been born on the same day. If there were two families involved in a swap of embryos, it wouldn't mean that the gestation would be on the same timeline. The other embryos may not have even been planted yet, or may have been implanted earlier. I don't know. It's the more you think about it, and what it brings to mind, and this gets a little bit complicated because it was overly, it was simplistically poorly described for political reasons when the IVF case hit here in Alabama. And so let me just walk through that for a minute because it brings up a point about that case. Now, the narrative was the state of Alabama and the Supreme Court shut down IVF in Alabama. And that's not what happened really. There was a civil case where down at a Mobile infertility clinic, some crazy woman broke in there and destroyed some embryos. I think she literally just smashed them on the floor. They had to get her under control. I don't know what that was about. But the embryos died. And so then there was a subsequent lawsuit from the families that lost the embryos against the clinic for the destruction of the embryos, that they were liable. They should have taken better care and not allowed this to happen. Pretty typical lawsuit, I guess, when you've got a loss like that. What the court had to decide was whether or not the IVF clinics enjoyed some kind of liability shield where they could not be sued. That got down to the question of life itself. Were these little lives that died in the eyes of the law? I mean, I know we all have our opinions on these things, but these lives were destroyed. And then what should be the compensation for that happening as if you lost a fully born child through some negligence. And so there was that question at play. And then, of course, can you sue the clinics? I think the law had a nuance, or there was a presumption of the way the law was interpreted, that these clinics had some plausible distance from some of these possible suits, because is this tissue or is this life? And so it was got down to that issue. So the Supreme Court ruled that no, you can sue the clinics, that if something goes wrong, they have a liability. Boom. That's when the clinics, looking at all the potential things that could go wrong, and I wasn't even thinking about a case like this, some of them shut down because of the fear of litigation, not knowing how to protect themselves from litigation. So they got in a trial lawyer trap where the liability of running your clinic seemed too high to run the clinic. So some of the clinics, I think, temporarily closed. I'm not sure any of them closed and left the state of Alabama. So the court didn't rule that the clinics had to close. The Democrats used that as a bludgeon to mischaracterize, as they do everything, what happened in order to get publicity over the IVF case and scare women in the election year. And then, of course, the Republicans didn't know how to spin that, so they stuck all the female representatives in the Senate and House. They put Katie Britt and others out there, and that's smart, young mom, to speak to the issue. But it was hard to play all that out and explain it all out. And that brings up this case, because now you've got a clinic seriously with an egregious situation, and there's clearly going to be litigation. And if that had happened in the state of Alabama prior to the Supreme Court ruling, there wouldn't be much you could do about it. I mean, they had a mix-up, and I guess you can always file a lawsuit. That's always in the realm, especially in a litigious state like we have. But it's got a lot more clarity now, and I think they did some things down in the legislature to try to make sure the laws were clear for everybody involved. And I get the clinics. They've got a business to run. It's a difficult industry. It's a difficult business. But like we were talking about earlier, and we brought this up last night. The caller called about this last night, and I didn't have the benefit of any knowledge of the case, but I remember covering cases where there were hospital mix-ups, not necessarily babies, but them giving the wrong medicines to people. I told about Lawson Army Hospital down at Fort Benning. Two different occasions removed the wrong leg off a soldier in an amputation surgery. And you hear about these things. You've heard about people taking out a liver that wasn't supposed to be removed. So hospitals went through deep checkdowns and that's why when you go to get a procedure, you got your little wristband on. They want to look at your band. They're going to ask you where you live and some particulars to make sure everybody double checks that you got the right person and you're doing the right thing, so that you don't get caught up in that cloud that goes on with all these hospitals. I'm sure if you work in that environment, and many of you know I have a son that's a surgeon, it becomes, I don't want to say routine, but you do these things every day. You do these same procedures, so you can't let the fog of the job cloud your focus in a moment like that. And all it takes is one tech to put the wrong person in the wrong room. And if you don't have a system in place to prevent that kind of thing, things happen. So this little girl doesn't look like, in the video I saw today, she doesn't look like she's 3 or 4 months old. I'm not sure when she was born. But even with modern technology and these things in the news and all that stuff, it still happened. And so the fallout from it's going to be fascinating. I'd love to know if the family of this little baby is the biological family's found, how they're going to work this out. Maybe in a more beautiful world, they can all come to some agreement to be able to share that child's life. But then again, like we talked about when we brought this up, what about the other kids? AJ knows the story. I had an Indian doctor, from India, almost give me a VD shot when I was a kid, AJ.
I remember that story.
Remember that story? I was in there for a tetanus shot. I think it was when I had that BB, when I got shot in the hand with a BB gun. So I went in there to get a tetanus shot. This dude came in there with the wrong needle. And this was before everybody got sued all the time. So the nurse told us. She said, she knew my mom. She goes, he almost gave him a VD shot. I was sitting there on the table. I was like 12 years old going, what is VD?
The gift that keeps on giving.
And my mom said, ask Bill Gates. He's apparently an expert. Now, that's in the news today. We'll talk about that later. All right, 545-9950. What a case, though. What a mind-boggling case. Which, by the way, that was a lead story this morning on some of the news networks. And then all this other stuff started going down, and it just got wiped out. We had a day full of headlines this afternoon. Michelson Laser Vision bringing you the show. Dr. Mark Michelson and Dr. Jennifer Michelson. MichelsonLaserVision.com. Y'all go check them out and let them help you with anything you need. They are ready to go with the latest technology. Legendary experience with Dr. Mark. And doggone it, Jennifer now is getting years under her belt, too, working alongside the best in the business, her father, and helping people with those procedures. And I love that, the way they tag team everything, and their staff. I just can't say enough about. They're so efficient and quick. They get you done. They get you in and out. That's how you run a good business operation, but it's also how you take good care of your patients and don't waste their time. All I can tell you about the procedures, it was absolutely simple, and it changed my life. To this day, I'm looking here right now, looking around my studio. Everything's crystal clear, and I love it. It's Michelson Laser Vision. You owe it to yourself to at least explore it. If you're in glasses or contacts, just check it out. See if it's right for you. MichelsonLaserVision.com, MichelsonLaserVision.com. All right, y'all, Leland Live, talking to M 5. Let's go, let's go. Hey, Jay, you think we're going to get any snow, man?
I hope not.
Has your little boy ever seen, like, real snow? I got to think about that, his age. Has he seen it? Has he played in it?
Yeah, he's played in snow. He didn't like it. I mean, obviously he was, much younger. Yeah. And then just recently, he was like, he looked out and he's like, oh, look, there's snow on the ground. And then he was like, oh, no, it's cold. And he stayed in the house.
He was done. Yeah, mine were like that, too. The blizzard in 93 hit when mine was 1. And I sat him outside. I thought, this is going to be the greatest day of his life. It was like a foot of snow where I was at the time in Columbus, Georgia. He was out there 30 seconds. He touched it. That was it. He had a meltdown. He wanted to come inside. It would be years. It would be years before the boy. And then I told this story before too. We were traveling somewhere in Virginia, and I saw this little plastic snow sled. It's something you don't often see around the South. You don't always just see, pretty cheap sled. So I bought this thing, stuffed it in the car, drove it all the way back from Virginia, put it down in the basement, and I thought to myself, the next time it snows, my boy's gonna have a sled. AJ, it didn't snow for 10 years. This kid was like a teenager before we had any significant snow and did not care about this sled. I think eventually I just gave it away to somebody.
Yeah, and that's like my biggest fear. It's like buying something, trying to prepare, like thinking like, oh, I'm thinking ahead and making sure that, when it snows next time, he's going to have a ball. And then my luck, just like what you just said, yeah, it ain't going to snow for like 10 years. And then by the time he's playing video games and off with his friends and forgets about me.
I think I jinxed it. I really do. I think if I just not have bought the sled, he could just get a trash can lid like the rest of us.
Right.
We'd make a redneck sled out of anything.
Oh, man. Cardboard box,
yep.
Trash can lids. I mean, we had imagination. Definitely had imagination.
If we get any of it, I don't think it's going to be enough to really make a good snowball without a bunch of mud and sticks and twigs in it.
Oh yeah,
we make those little janky snowmans because we don't get you got to have like a good 3 inches to get a good snowman going.
Yeah, and I mean unless you come up with a new story of is it Muddy Frosty the Snowman's slow cousin.
Muddy the redneck snowman. We could do the whole animated show of that.
I mean,
AI, we could probably put that together.
Yes. Especially with AI, you can put a little cartoon together. Muddy, the redneck snowman.
He's got all that grass in there in his fur. We'd have to change the whole song. He wouldn't have 2 eyes made out of coal. We ain't got any coal laying around.
No,
burn that stuff.
Instead of like and then like for his nose, instead of it being like a carrot, it's a cigarette.
Yeah, it's a Marlboro.
Yeah.
Well, he'll have a cigarette.
Right.
I don't know what we'd make his eyes out of, but I know he'd have a different kind of hat on. He'd have a vagina. He'd have a hat quite like this. A good old camo hat with an American flag on it.
He could do that. He could have like an American flag on there, and he has a little snow pickup truck with big old tires.
Damn right.
America. Yeah.
Frosty the redneck snowman. What we call him, Muddy the snowman. What you looking at? Never seen sticks sticking out of somebody's ass before? Muddy the snowman.
Oh gosh. Yeah, we gotta do something like that.
That's too good. I want to keep going with it for 2 more minutes because we got a break coming up.
And then we got to, since you're really good at writing songs, you got to come up with a nice little Muddy the stick man.
Like, I could do Burl Ives version of it.
Right.
Was a low down redneck drunk. We could make it work.
But he can fix anything that you want if you only give him a 6-pack.
Nothing like a stereotype. We do it all the time. All peoples are subject to stereotyping on this show. All of us. Everybody. Everybody's eligible. All right, here we go. Top of the hour, 1819 news. Your phone calls, too, if y'all want to get in here on the show. As you can see clearly, it's slowed down. I'll keep the headlines going, though. We'll keep a check on all these things tonight. Y'all stay tuned. Leland Live, talking to M5.